been voted in as the president of Zambia, and we'll be following up on this to see what then will play out. But for the longest of time we probably have had transitions, and these transitions have not been peaceful, but this time around President Edgar Lungu has been celebrated for accepting defeat and, accepting that, it is time that he hands over the mantle to somebody else, hoping that this will be that one person that will deliver on the promises that he's given to the people of Zambia, saying that he is focused on dealing with corruption, the aspect of unemployment, and making sure that there's that peaceful coexistence in the country. Above everything, the situation is getting dire in Afghanistan, and so much is happening down there as the Taliban has taken over, and President Biden acknowledging that officially they have withdrew the forces that have been there for the longest of time, about 20 years, saying that there's not been so much of a change in terms of making sure that Afghanistan is stable, and therefore so much is happening down there as a majority of them are trying to flee to different parts of the world in search of a peaceful coexistence. Just what will happen is one thing that the world is keenly watching. And back at home, again politically, there's still that process of preparing for 2022 politics, and that's technically what a majority of leaders are doing right now, as well as ourselves. And also just that evening that we walk into some sad news of the loss of Pregay, nominated senator, as we all say, may his soul rest in eternal peace, as we join the rest of the country in condoling with friends and family. We'll be looking at all this as we focus much on the aspect of priorities. We ask ourselves this morning, just what is the priority in the nation right now? Even as we await the declaration of what fate the BBI will take, it is important that we have conversations as to whether what is to be saved. Is the BBI good enough to come in handy to save the economy? Is it what we want as at now? Those are the key questions that we'll be asking. Well, half a side of the country, I'd say, argues that maybe the BBI or the constitutional amendment process is the least that we need right now, while others continue to say that, it's important that the government looks into the aspect of the economy and how then we get the Kenyans staying afloat. So we look at all this. Make sure that you keep it right here. Later on, we'll be engaging SMEs that will tell us their view on what needs to be done to revamp this particular sector that is hugely instrumental in terms of making sure that the country is able to collect revenue, as they had said that KRA had beaten the odds, and in these times of COVID-19 they've managed to still collect so much more than expected. So we have all this lined up for you. As always, we have the papers, and we'll be looking at the Daily Nation, the Standard newspaper, and the People Daily alongside my guests, just so that you are kept on the loop. We also welcome your feedback. #Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47K is how you get to interact with us. We sample some of these comments as we proceed with the broadcast. My name is Linda Lela. Morning Cafe begins right away. So let's look at what the key story of the paper is. And Daily Nation, the front page of the Daily Nation, as we can see right here, all right, it just decided to misbehave, but all the same, it's not a problem because we have the hard copy. As we try to open it up, not a problem. We have the hard copy of the Daily Nation. Speaks of Raila 2022 factor. Let me do it kienyeji, as they would rightfully say it. 2022 Raila factor splits One Kenya Alliance chiefs, and while leaders of the nascent alliance agree on many issues, accommodation of ODM boss Raila Odinga in their lineup for next year's poll is one thing that is giving them headache, as they argue they would not want the Prime Minister to come in, or the former Prime Minister to come in, on basis of being the senior to them. He says that they should be on the same ground, and therefore maybe conduct a nomination process that would determine who will be the flag bearer of the One Kenya Alliance. This, as President Uhuru Kenyatta has constantly maintained that if these leaders were to work together, he will be there to make sure that he supports them or supports their bid. And importantly, he has called upon them to make decisions pretty fast if at all they would want to beat well, the main contenders are now Deputy President William Ruto. Just one way forward for One Kenya Alliance. They are set to meet the Right Honorable this week, and so we'll be following up to see what they will deliberate on. Alliance on internal analysis has put Kalonzo and Mudavadi ahead of the pack. We all saw them last week, just coming out, Kalonzo last week, but one Musalia last week, coming out with a model and, the manifesto kind of thing that they would want to present to the people of Kenya so that they appear as though they would be the right people or individuals to make sure that the country stays afloat upon their helm. And a different story altogether. Civil servants get improved NHIF cover. New scheme has additional benefits. A story captured on the back page of the Daily Nation. This comes in handy as many have really celebrated this move by government. It will come in a huge way to make sure that a majority of people are cushioned and they're able to access health facilities without having to struggle. So NHIF outpatient cover up to about 350,000, better dental and optical services are some of the goodies that come along with this. Government employees to access inpatient services between 700,000 and 2.5 million. Indeed, one thing that will be very instrumental towards making sure that very many people are able to get health care in an easy way. County workers feel safer with their pensions under the Treasury, not governors. It's interesting to note that it's all been tough, especially at the level of the counties. They always complain that disbursements of funds will take forever, will take long, and therefore once it gets to the governors or once it gets to the level of the counties, again, it takes even longer for them to be paid. And so they kind of feel like, they do not have the faith of, having their money sitting in the governor's offices. And of course, they would rather that Treasury is the body that holds these particular funds. CBC burden for parents, complains galore on homework and costly activities. Indeed costly. If you've been there, then you probably understand what it takes. A majority of times you have to sit down with your child, you probably have no time, you've come in a bit late, and there are a lot of practical activities that you need to do. And these practical activities engage, you, and of course involve a lot of buying of stuff. And so most of the parents kind of feel like, it is more of a burden to them today. But as the Ministry of Education will maintain, it is more of a skill, kind of education arrangement, and therefore the students have to be engaged as much as possible. Zambia's BAMBA in landslide poll win. Now tycoon and opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema beats incumbent Edgar Lungu in his 6th stab at the presidency, and officially he gets his. So actually it's never too late. It's interesting that you could be there running for like 6 times without getting it, or maybe for 5 times, and then the 6th time you are lucky. Let's see whether he will be the person who brings change in Zambia. The Embu brothers, 6 police officers face murder charges as, of course, the calls for justice are out there. Emmanuel Mutura, 19, and Benson Jiro, 22, were buried at their village in Kidangari, that is in Embu, on Saturday. We keep saying may your souls continue to rest in eternal peace as justice for these young men is being sought. And the low vaccine uptake is one thing that the Ministry of Health is decrying. This as Kenyans are reminded that it's important that they go out there and get the jab if at all they're able to access. The numbers continue to shoot up, and the clarion call is that make sure you are keen to follow or abide by the guidelines as set by the government. And here we have the Standard newspaper. Let's see whether the hard copy resonates with what we have on the soft copy. Yes, it does. Akasha twin girls missing for 2 weeks. That's an interesting story. You all know of the Akasha brothers and what their fate was like. And this is a story captured on page 5. We'd probably want to know details of the same now that the twin is missing. And Killer Brew officers suspended. That is also one thing that you need to get a hold of. Is a story captured on page 25. The numerous cases of people losing their lives because of taking alcohol that is not good or is not good. We also what happened the other day, about 8 people actually lost their lives to this, and this is a story that expanded extensively on page 25. Zambia's president defeated, that we've also touched on, and Uhuru's goodies for medalists. We also President Uhuru Kenyatta celebrating feting these individuals that represented us ably at the Olympics in Tokyo, Japan, something that a majority of Kenyans had complained about, that probably as a government or as a country we've not yet just had ways or proper ways of celebrating our very own sportsmen and women, especially at times when they bring glory back at home. A fake pregnancy and stolen baby, a couple in Ogilgel, Kurisoi, is in the news after the woman allegedly faked pregnancy and bought a baby, an act that now puts her in trouble with the law and threatens her marriage. A story captured on page 3. Well, sometimes it's desperate moments call for desperate measures, and therefore, in as much as you'd want to probably point a finger or condemn her, sometimes you just go back and ask yourself what took her to do this. I mean, the desire of making sure that there's glory in your marriage by getting a child. Sometimes you'd want to condemn, but when you try to understand where she comes from, you are left with no choice but, just to say well and good. But the sad bit is the fact that they had to go to extents of stealing children, yet there are options of adopting. 6 officers face murder charges, those ones that are linked to the murder of these young brothers. Of course, that one has been touched on as IPOA and other entities have taken up this matter to make sure that justice is found for these young tax. Decisive moment for One Kenya Alliance is crucial, or they are in crucial talks. The question of how and when to pick one, of how and when to pick One Kenya Alliance 2022 flag bearer is set to feature as a technical team of Wiper, KANU and ANC, and Ford Kenya presents a proposed roadmap that includes manifesto, colors and symbols. A story captured on page 6. It will be interesting to watch, and therefore briefly we'll touch on this matter this morning alongside my guests, as we also get to have their view on the same, and we just look at this gentleman, just who is formidable enough to get a hold of this, while KANU has declared that they would be interested for the presidency, and Ford Kenya would equally wish for the same. It is just clear that only these 2 contenders, that is Musalia Mudavadi and Wiper's Kalonzo Musyoka, are the ones who've come out clear on their intention to go it for the presidency. And now the delicate balance is the fact that ODM is keen, or ODM has shown some level of goodwill to work with them. And so the big question is, as they work with ODM, just how then will they be able to balance their game to make sure that at least they're able to be the ones who, ascend to power. Are we going to have the BBI is a question of wait and see. So we'll be discussing all this later on the broadcast. Also, when we say it's countdown to that D-Day, and should be on Friday, where we expect the Court of Appeal to give us their deliberations on the fate of the BBI, and what then would be their finding as to whether then BBI should proceed or not. After the Standard newspaper, we briefly look at the People Daily, and we have the People Daily here. It's a D-Day for One Kenya Alliance as Raila launches bid. One Kenya Alliance chief meet Naivasha to discuss a report on future of union, while ODM leader on this other side launches his countrywide campaigns in the same county in readiness for his 2022 bid. A story captured on page 4. And so we equally wait to see what this gentleman will agree upon. The report should contain the method of picking the flag bearer and how the alliance will operate. This is according to Ayub Savula, who's a part and parcel of the One Kenya Alliance under the Amani Coalition Party of Musalia Mudavadi. So we'll be following up keenly to get to know what will be the deliberations after this crucial meeting that then will chart the way forward for the key leaders of One Kenya Alliance. Olympics team get goodies from President Uhuru Kenyatta, and President fits heroes with gold medalists taking home 1 million, silver winners 750,000, and bronze earners taking home 500,000. Congratulations to them. Cattle boy millionaire president of Zambia. That is in regards to the political scenario in Zambia, as at now, as we've all folded up closely. Mithika Linthuri up in bizarre rape cum extortion saga. A story captured on page 9. We know that it's a case that has been ongoing, and therefore we'll be having developments of the same as we continue. Page 2 on matters education. Teachers could miss salary over COVID-19 jab snap. Tutors have been they have 7 days to comply with state directive to get vaccinated or forfeit their August remuneration. It has to get to that level where then there's that crucial push, because we all need to make sure that our students are safe and our teachers are as safe. And those are the key stories captured in the papers, as I have said, and as we always do, we'll have the leaders this morning that will help us decipher on the same. But first, we also look at what my team has prepared in regards to news. And the Director of Public Prosecution, that is Nordin Haji, has ordered for the immediate arrest and arraignment in court of 6 police officers implicated in the murder of the 2 Kianjakoma brothers, Benson Njiru and Emmanuel Mutura, as Mwangi Maina tells us.
The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nordin Haji, has ordered The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nordin Haji, has ordered for the immediate arrest and arraignment in court of 6 police officers implicated in the horrendous murder of 2 brothers in Kianjakoma, Embu County. Earlier in the day, Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai suspended the 6 officers, paving way for prosecution after investigations were concluded. The ODPP says the preliminary findings are under urgent scrutiny and review. The ODPP says, and I quote, "Based on the preliminary investigations report forwarded by the Inspector General, I am shortly directing the IG to immediately arrest and arraign in court in Nairobi all officers involved pending investigations by the IPOA to avoid any interference with evidence and or intimidation of witnesses." End of quote. Further, Nordin Haji has directed that findings and results of all investigation be presented to him not later than close of business tonight, Monday, the 16th of August. Meanwhile, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority (IPOA) has completed its investigation on the matter and recommended for the suspension of the 6 officers. IPOA also wants the 6 to face murder charges and surrender any government stores in their possession, including their firearms, as well as their commanders be available round the clock to IPOA when called upon. The breakthrough in the investigations comes 2 weeks after the murder of the 2 brothers. Amid constant calls from Kenyans for justice to be served, Emmanuel and Benson were killed on the night of August 1st for allegedly flouting the curfew order while heading home from business. The brothers were buried Friday. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
And 9 police officers have been interdicted in Nakuru County for failing to tame production and consumption of illicit brew in the county. Addressing the press, Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembeya said that those interdicted include Deputy County Commissioner, Sub-County Police Commander, OCPD, and chiefs and their assistant chiefs in Hodi Hodi and JC villages. Meanwhile, the tough-talking Natembeya has warned police officers abating sale of illicit brew that their days are numbered.
Tumefanya uchunguzi for the last few days, na wale watu ambao wako culpable kwa sasa ni wale maafisa wetu wa usalama wa Nakuru North county security, sub-county security committee ya Nakuru North. Na tungependa kutangaza ifuatavyo ya kwamba Deputy County Commissioner wa Bahati North Bwana Gotv Mwami Mayama ambaye ni senior DCC amekuwa interdicted kuanzia leo. Namba 2, Bwana Bernard Omugunda ambaye ni Sub County Police Commander wa Bahati wa Nakuru North kule Bahati pia amekuwa interdicted leo. SEC wa Kiamaina ambaye ni DO Bwana Isaac Ooko amekuwa interdicted. OCS wa Kiugini Police Station Bwana Solomon Wamae amekuwa interdicted. Jambo lingine ni kwamba kumekuwa na maofisa wetu pia ambao kule wanatembea wakirokota pesa pia. Bwana County Police Commander yuko hapa, atachukua administrative action kwa hao maofisa. Vile tulisema incumbent police saizi ukifanya makosa hautapigwa transfer kupelekwa mahali pengine kwenda kuendelea kufanya hayo maneno huko. In 1 week hatutaki kusikia kitu kwamba inaitwa pombe katika region hii ya bonde la Ufa. Zile counties ambazo ziko notice, the first one is Nakuru ambayo hata ni headquarters ya hii region. Kila sub county ya Nakuru kuna mahali naweza kusema kwamba hakuna pombe. Pombe imejaa kila mahali. Na kazi inaanza from today. County ya Bomet, zile county sugu ambazo ziko na pombe nyingi, Bomet, Kericho, Nandi, Narok, especially area inaitwa Emurua Dikir, na kule Kilgoris watu wanakunywa pombe sana. Kajiado, Laikipia, Samburu.
All right. Now, Mary Senator Mithika Linturi is making headlines for the wrong reasons again. This time around, a woman is accusing the legislator of attempting to rape her. And as Boniface Baraza reports, Linturi has moved to court seeking orders barring the DCI from making any arrests.
Meru Senator Mithika Linturi is in trouble for sneaking into a couple's hotel room when the husband was out and allegedly attempted to rape the wife in an incident that is said to have occurred early this year. According to DCI boss George Kinoti, Linturi is alleged to have sneaked into Berry Lacote's room at around 3 a.m. in the morning. The woman claims she had a knock at the door and assumed it was her husband. 30 minutes later, she had another knock, and this time it happened to be her husband, prompting her to switch on the lights since she was confused. The couple later learned the stranger was Senator Mithika Linturi. Senator Linturi allegedly offered the couple 200,000 shillings and a check worth 800,000 shillings to calm the situation. Later, Linturi is allegedly to have filed an extortion claim report with Laikipia East DCI. Consequently, the couple were turned into suspects, prompting them to file a counterclaim at the DCI headquarters in Nairobi. Investigations were conducted and DCI sleuths say they are ready to make arrest, prompting Linturi through his lawyer Charles Mongela to seek an order barring the DCI and DPP from making any arrests. Boniface Barasa, TV47.
Interesting times. Now, the Teachers Service Commission has decried low vaccination turnout after just over 100,000 teachers turned up to be vaccinated against a 400,000 target. Now, Meru County has recorded an increase in COVID-19 infections, recording more than 100 cases in the past 3 weeks.
The Teachers Service Commission has decried low turnout in the ongoing teachers vaccination drive. TSC has now issued a 7-day ultimatum to teachers to be vaccinated. So far, 81 have been reported to have died of COVID-19 in the country. The Teachers Service Commission, TSC, says that only 110,342 teachers have had full COVID-19 vaccinations so far. By last weekend, only 178,734 teachers had received their first dose of COVID-19 vaccines.
As of last Saturday, hii Saturday imepita, August 14, 2021, 178,734 teachers have had been vaccinated with the first dose. Lakini si mnajua walimu ni over 300, and only 178,000 had gotten the first dose.
Elsewhere in Meru County, the rate of infections is rising after the county recorded 139 cases and 21 deaths in the past 3 weeks. Health officials say that majority of the residents are defying COVID-19 prevention protocol.
And I want to assure teachers that the quickest way for life to return to normal is for most people to get vaccinated. You have heard the doctor say that if most of us are vaccinated, then we shall get herd immunity.
The second batch of AstraZeneca vaccine is set to arrive Tuesday from England. British High Commissioner to Kenya, Jane Marriott, has said that the 407,000 doses will arrive Tuesday evening at JKIA. Today, 679 tested positive from a sample size of 5,693, bringing the cumulative total of infections to 221,406. 1,550 have recovered from the disease, bringing the total recoveries to 203,992. 10 deaths have been recorded, bringing the cumulative fatalities to 4,350. President Uhuru Kenyatta has announced renewed effort in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic in Africa in collaboration with South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa.
So I'm very keen to also see that deepening partnership, and we've been working and talking. You've taken a lead with Aspen Pharma, and we're hoping to collaborate in that area to ensure that not just for this pandemic, but also for future pandemics, we are better able now to follow through on the actions that we take by also ensuring that we're also able to give our people the vaccines without having to depend on third parties who end up letting us down in the long term.
Jessica Nanjendo, TV47.
Well, leaders of the One Kenya Alliance are meeting in Naivasha to discuss, among other issues, how to pick a flag bearer. However, reports indicate some of the players in the alliance are pushing for the team to wait for the outcome of the BBI appeal set to be delivered on Friday this week, as Willie Njiru tells us.
The four principals arrived at a Naivasha lodge this evening ahead of a meeting that is set to discuss their 2022 strategy. The four, however, are yet to agree on their candidate, with claims that they are likely to wait for the outcome of the BBI appeal, which is set to be released on Friday. Of choosing the flag bearers are some of the issues to be discussed during the meeting.
We also want to look at the national profile of politics in Kenya and see how we can do a SWOT analysis of where we stand, how we fare, what we are looking for, how to get it, who we are looking for with, how we engage them. And like we told you before, this is not, those are options. We have invited like-minded people to join us, and I'm sure they will. In fact, we have a long queue of suitors who are waiting.
Contention of working with ODM leader Raila Odinga after their bitter fallout in NASA will also be discussed, with the former NASA members reluctant to work with Odinga unless under new terms.
Is he going to be part of this meeting?
No, he isn't. He's not part of the One Kenya Alliance, at least for now. One Kenya Alliance is yours truly here. Honorable Senator Gideon Moi, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, and Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka.
The ouster of the IBC chairman Wafula Chebukati by of team.
Chebukati is very objective. He has been working under difficult conditionalities in terms of commissioners. The panel has work. Commissioners on the floor at the moment is going to Justice and Legal Affairs, and probably next week or so we are going to debate the new commissioners, and we want to pass with speed, because if you remember, the say for you to have credible elections, the IBC must be in place at least 24 months for elections. Why our colleagues coming once in a year, 10 months for the removal of IBC? We want to understand what is their agenda. This is something we've been monitoring, and we are telling our colleagues to stop this notion.
This coming just of President Uhuru Kenyatta in Mombasa.
You know, when you are hunting, you don't prepare your jiko before you capture what you are looking for. Otherwise, you might end up in the wrong direction. So we're hunting, and we're also being hunted. Of course, because this is a quid pro quo in the political arena of Kenya. You seduce, you are seduced, and things move. But we know for sure that this One Kenya Alliance is the panacea for the many, many things that Kenya has been missing.
Reporting for TV 47 from Naivasha in Nakuru County, I'm Willie Dennis.
Yeah, we are happy to. Certainly, is that we are this. Thanks, Willie Dennis, for that. And my guests are already in studio. We have one virtually. Anthony Konya will be with us this morning. We also have the Advocate of the High Court in the name of this morning, and Kevin Osido, governance expert, will be joining us virtually. So make sure that you keep it right here as we papers alongside this guest and equally weigh in on the crucial matters as pertaining to politics. Remember, it's just like a day or two before we get the deliberations on matters BBI. What way forward? What is the main thing that we would consider as priority as a people? So we take a quick break. We come back with more. And we are back, as earlier on mentioned. My guests are one joining us virtually, and the other two are with me in studio as we look at these key stories. I mean, we do not fail to look at what is happening in Afghanistan briefly, what is happening in Zambia briefly, and just probably equate and match that to the situation in the country. President Hakainde coming in and saying that his main agenda then would be to deal with graft. Very important that he deals with the aspect of unemployment and a couple of other issues that really equate to what we're going through as a country. And therefore, we just want to look at this. Do we pick lessons from the fact that we've seen Edgar Lungu, confidently and, without a lot of drama, accepting the fact that he has lost to Hakainde? I mean, one of the key things that you need to note is that in most cases, it's always been very hard to get an African president or an incumbent president, just accepting defeat and saying that, well and good, I give it to the winner, I have lost. And, they say, well, this is a conceding speech to say that I agree, I have lost it. And therefore, this is one democratic move, in as much as the president at some point felt like there was no, justice and fairness as to how the processes were conducted. So as we get to discuss the papers alongside my guests, I think it's very important that we get some of these issues that are playing out in different countries and compare them to our own. And here we are. We have the hard copies and the soft copies of the Standard newspaper, the People Daily, and the Daily Nation. My guests, as earlier on mentioned, we have the Advocate of the High Court, and that is Dening Okato, joining us this morning after a very long time, and we're glad to have him back. The other time I tried to get a hold of him, aliringa sana, but I'm glad that he's back.
So that's sabbatical.
Oh yeah? Well, we're happy to have you back.
Thank you.
And we also have Honorable Anthony Konya, and a household name, I must admit. You all know Honorable Anthony Konya. Majority of times he is here. He's the Member of County Assembly, Kiambu Township, right?
Yes.
I'm talking to Member of Parliament.
Yeah, we get that.
Are we still headed for that?
We, of course, yes.
All right,
yes.
That's good. All right, congratulations, and we wish you nothing but the best. You're part and parcel of this family, and therefore your win is certainly our win. Kevin Osido will be joining us shortly, virtually. He was a governance expert and also very keen on making sure that activities at the level of the counties are running well. The key under his organization of just Governance Watch. So, Kevin Osido, how are you?
I am fine, thank you. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning. You decided that it's very cold and therefore you won't come to studio today.
No, I am in Nakuru over some matters of national importance.
Right. Why is it Naivasha and you're joining the One Kenya Alliance team or something?
Naivasha yesterday, Nakuru today, but not joining the OKA.
Okay. All right, well and good. We're happy to have you this morning. Gentlemen, we briefly look at the papers. I think it's crucial that in as much as we discuss politics, we look at what is happening, in the world of news, a couple of other things that have been captured. And therefore, we start off by looking at these stories that are captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. The Standard newspaper, they say, is that moment for One Kenya Alliance. Let's shelve that one briefly because it's one of the key things that we'll be discussing this morning as we look at what then would be the matrix for these key leaders. We're talking about Gideon Moi, Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, Musalia Mudavadi, and also we do not forget Right Honorable Raila Odinga as they all try to see whether they can loop him in, and if they loop him in, then who will be the flag bearer. Mheshimiwa is always very keen when I get a tongue twister. I don't know why. Yani Mheshimiwa ungoangi wewe. Because asubuhi when I just do a mistake unaniangalia sana.
No, but you know how do you do that? But this morning you...
I guess I took a lot of sugar. All right, that aside, key stories as captured. I think we start off with what is happening in Zambia. They've gone through an election and Edgar Lungu has lost it. And the beauty of it all, the democratic space, in as much as he acknowledges that he really was not satisfied with how the electoral body conducted the elections, he confidently says that he has conceded defeat to Hakainde Hichilema, who's been trying to go for it for, this is actually the 6th time, and he gets it. Na hapa vile mnasukumanga baba mkimwambia ati amejaribu mara 4, aachie sasa watu wengine.
No, I think a couple of things are playing out. Number one, I've seen resilience. You know, when you try out 6 times, it's a lot of resilience. So I think it is important we all learn that in this life you can't keep pushing.
Right.
And probably one time things will come through for you. And that's a lesson that all of us have learned here. The other thing is that it is also important to see, to have a president who was in power, in the helm of power with systems. We call them systems in Kenya, and everything. You empower and then you concede defeat. I think it's a good thing that within a democratic space that leaders are able now to allow others to come in and to agree with the verdict of the people. I think it's very important. Those are lessons that we need to draw as Kenyans. Realize that you cannot be in power forever. Someone else will come in, and you must respect the will of the people. So irrespective of how the president felt in terms of the way the elections played out, he had a lot to in terms of seeing a good election. But it's good that he has conceded. So I think that's a lesson that we can still draw, from Zambia, and the entire Africa. That elections will come, people will give their verdicts, and it's important that you accept the results as they come. So I think those two important two things playing out to me are lessons that Kenyans should learn.
Over time, if there's anything that has been looked at as an impossibility, is a sitting president, an incumbent, losing to one that is coming on board. What does it speak about the democratic space of Zambia, the interference of elections by incumbents, in most cases, what we have seen across Africa, and the fact that, Edgar Lungu can confidently say, it's all right, I accept defeat, I hope the next person is able to take Zambia to the next space?
Well, I actually think there is still hope for Africa and the world at large. And you see, democracy is a word that's rarely used in Africa, most incumbents don't want to let power go.
Yeah.
But you see, Edgar Lungu has been in power for 10 years. He had an opportunity to still be president. As Mheshimiwa puts it, he had all the trappings of power. He would have done anything to stick to power. But what he did is to call the president-elect, had a meeting with other leaders. I saw Jakaya Kikwete was also there. And they discussed on how the country should move forward. So I think these are lessons all countries in Africa and around the world should learn, that indeed we still have gentlemen people who actually do not really look out for themselves. They look out for the betterment of the country. And I saw him giving a statement on Facebook referring to the people who gave him power for the 10 years. And he was very grateful and wished Zambia better days ahead. So for me, democracy, at least with that example, is starting to grow.
All right, and a peaceful process, I must admit. We have constantly spoken about, the wind of change sweeping across Africa, revolution processes across Africa, but this actually has been a wind of change for the people of Zambia, but a very instrumental one, a very, peaceful one, so to speak. They have gone through an election process that really was not marred with a lot of controversy and fights and wars across, much as at some point there are few who would have probably registered disappointment on how, this was conducted. As a governance expert, Kevin Osido, what does this speak to the growth of democracy in Africa?
So, Linda, one of the things that Africans must do for Africa is to get prepared. And if you look at the success of the elections in Zambia, in my way of looking at it, is purely based on how prepared the country was and how they were able to learn lessons from other countries. And if you look at the political history of Zambia in terms of how Zambia was able to gain power from the colonial powers, how Zambia has been able to engage with her neighboring countries, and how the people of Zambia have been able to be inspired by past leaders and the current leaders. There are deep-seated lessons that then the citizens of Zambia are learning, and even their leaders. And therefore, those are lessons that inform their prospects in terms of how they move forward. And you look at the question that you asked, which is based on transition and how easy it was for them to have an election, and in less than 24 hours, they already have a new president, which is not what you see in other countries. Despite the fact that in other countries, we see presidents who want to change constitutions. Closer home is actually within East Africa. Central Africa has also given us some of those examples. You go to Ghana. Ghana has been one of those very progressive countries that have been hailed as Africa's democratic sphere. And so Africa is growing democratically, and that really is based on how prepared we are to be inspired by our leaders, not forgetting the aspirations of the people, of course, because you realize that for an outgoing president like Edgar Lungu, who came out and he was very positively inspired by how the Zambians came out to vote for an opposition leader who has actually been trying to run for office for almost 30 years, if you are to go by 5-year terms of office. So 5 times 6 is actually 30 years. But if you look at the other aspects, is of course coalition building and sharing of power, which Kenya is very akin to, because in this country we have seen elections that are that are marred by violence, when people fail to concede and when people fail to hand over power. We see coalitions that are formed, and so people really get moved into spaces of governance, and that really informs how transitions are organized. And if you look at our constitution, for instance, Linda, we have had to even to be inspired by our constitution by putting it right inside the document that within this amount of time we must have the committee that is supposed to oversee the transition of power. Yeah. We have to have the president handing over in public, so that people are actually seeing that elections have been done, and we are now handing over power to another president. And so these are lessons that we continue to learn, even as we look at how the democratic space within Africa and African nations are building. But much more fundamentally is to look at how the people get inspired, Linda, and I'm hoping that Zambia will really be able to inspire even Kenya to be able to learn lessons that will help us in our next elections, which is Kenya 2022 general elections. Linda.
As we are getting inspired, we also constantly remind ourselves that we're not anyway. And therefore, when you look at nations going down, nations falling down, then it means it's either you choose to pick lessons from those ones that have done well, or you choose to pick lessons from those ones that have gone down, and you go down along. The world is watching keenly what is happening in Afghanistan today, and the involvement of America in the same. Trump calling on Biden to resign over how he's handled the Afghanistan issue. Taliban co-founder Abdul Barada, on the other hand, says now it's time to test and prove. Now we have to show that we can serve our nation and ensure security and comfort of life. Looking at the situation there today, is there any form of guarantee that such can be experienced?
Number one, let me just mention something that Rosindi has said, getting back a little bit to Zambia.
Yeah.
The credibility of an election is, or rather the credibility of the process is what determines the transition of power.
That's true.
Because if you look at what happened in Zambia, you know, the election was so credible to the extent that nobody could doubt anything. So I think even as a country, as we get prepared for the next general election, the credibility is the most important thing. So that everybody, by the time the results are out, you're very sure that this is exactly the will of the people, and rather this is what was expressed. Going to Afghanistan, I must admit that despite the fact that America has been in Afghanistan, but I think they've been there for far too long. I think it's important now they give the people of Afghanistan space to build their own government, to build their own country, to have peace, you know, without not being overseen by other people. I think it is important at this point in time that we allow the people of Afghanistan to build their own government, to have their own systems, to run their own country, and give them space. I think it's time that America pulls out and allows, because the entire world is watching. In an event that terrorism erupts again, everybody's there. So we'll still get in if it's necessary. But I think it's time that America gets out and allows them to have their own space and peace.
And true to it, Biden has said that officially they choose to get out. But is Afghanistan safe in the hands of the Taliban?
Well, I think the situation on the ground is a once bitten, twice shy scenario. You see, in 1991, 30 years ago, when the Taliban came in for the first time, it was a terror group. You do realize right now the founder of the Taliban is actually in Doha, Qatar. And most of the things that they are doing is negotiations. And you do realize that the main reason actually why I think it was a timing, they knew very well the US will leave, and they came in immediately.
Right.
And the key reason they are putting out actually is that it was not an all-inclusive government. But now the problem with the people is that they fear the 100% Islamic State sort of thing. Because now you see in such things, women and children, or rather women, do not go to school. Yesterday I was watching a clip on Al Jazeera, and I think one of the founding members was asked a question. Will women continue going to school? And he was quite positive about it. And that is why you see, even with the takeover of the presidential palace, I mean, for those few hours, we haven't had anything negative. And I've seen calls of other countries. I've seen China saying they are ready to engage in friendly relationship. In international law, we call that recognition. And once that is there, I think everything is okay.
Okay, Osido, as we close on this one, the interference of the West or the involvement of the West, in activities of different countries, if there is a continent that suffers from that, or maybe has gained or benefited from that, it got to be Africa. And we constantly say that it becomes hard for Africa to be stable because then there's always the hand of the West. And in as much as America would confidently say that we are out of Afghanistan in totality, we always know that deep within there's going to be some performing activities that are going on courtesy of the United States. Just what does it mean to have a nation being guided and being, of course, overseen by a different state or a different nation?
Linda, the most important thing in my view is to look at sustainability of leadership and governance. So leadership is really the institution, the individual, the person who stands at the helm, that is the leader. And if you look at Afghanistan, for instance, there is a history that really spans, as my co-panelist says, over 30 years, from 1991 when we had those terror attacks. And in fact, the person or the people who said there were terror attacks were outsiders. The people from within felt like they needed to safeguard their interests. They felt that foreign nations were interfering with their affairs and that their culture was not being protected, which is why, for instance, going to school is really an issue. And if you look at, for instance, similar violent extremist organizations or groups, closer home is Nigeria, where you have Boko Haram, for instance, who continue to say going to school is haramu, reading a book is haramu. is really to look at what is the core of the problem. And so when these friends of our nations or friends of other countries, the ones that you are, for instance, referring to as the US, come in, what therefore is their interest, which brings the second issue other than leadership, is really the interest. How then do you navigate and merge these interests by mainstreaming them so that the citizens feel that they are safe, they are secure, and that their interests are also being safeguarded, which is not what we have seen with, countries. And that is why the term interference from diplomatic relations, so international relations and diplomacy comes in. So when your interests are not being felt to be given prominence and you don't feel like your interests are being mainstreamed in the interests of the other country, then other groups will begin to come up like Taliban. And so they want to protect their interests, they want to protect their culture, they want to protect the nation. And if there is a leader, because you already referred to leadership, if there is a leader whom they think is not very progressive in terms of safeguarding their interests, then these groups will move into state house, they will move into palaces, they will move into places where leadership and governance is being exercised. And that therefore brings the third thing, Linda, which is called governance. So it's about institutions and how these institutions are supposed to be run. Do you have laws that safeguard human rights? Do you have laws that safeguard, how you relate with other countries, or you allow them to come in and just interfere with your affairs? Which is why, for instance, in Kenya right now we have a very serious issue on government saying friends of Kenya cannot support IEBC, for example. What are the governing mechanisms that we have put in place as a country to safeguard those kind of interests? Because elections is the easiest way to exercise and measure, is the closest indicator of leadership and democracy. Right. And so the people of Taliban and Afghanistan feel, for instance, that the leader who is in office is not safeguarding their interests, and that he has over-relied on the West, and he has over-relied on foreign powers, then you want to come back and begin to ask the question, how do we reclaim our sovereignty? Remember, for instance, if you are to compare what has happened in Afghanistan and Kenya, Kenya, we have a constitution, which is a governance mechanism, Linda, that therefore says all sovereign power rests on the hands of the people. Right. If you were to go back to Afghanistan, where would that sovereign power rest in? As we speak today, it actually rests in the hands of Taliban. And if Taliban therefore will be able to present safer spaces for the people to integrate, because right now people are also scared, they don't know what to expect, because the US got into Afghanistan to be able to protect human rights, which they felt that Taliban was actually taking away by being regarded as a violent extremist organization. Yeah. And you see, for instance, people are running out of the country. They want to, cling on planes that are on the runway, and they are leaving because of fear. They're not so sure about what to expect. But if the leader of the Taliban, who has actually taken the reins of power right now, can be able to stand and assure the people of Afghanistan that I am your leader and that we are going to work with other nations, we are going to ensure that we are protected, which is what.
Well, all right, we'll fix that technical hitch and come back to him. On these other stories, we make it brief, so at least we can get to the subject of discussion. Civil servants get improved. NHIF cover new scheme has additional benefits. This was long overdue, so to speak, Mheshimiwa. It's a story captured on the Daily Nation, the back page of the Daily Nation. And civil servants are said to enjoy an enhanced medical scheme that will see them get additional benefits and fast reimbursements of out-of-pocket medical expenses. The likes of NMS staff are equally set to enjoy this after there was that approval. And it appears like, well, this is one move that will be celebrated. But don't you think this is, something that should have been happening quite a while back anyway?
I think it's long overdue. And I'll have to do a couple of things about NHIF. And I think we need to wholly revisit the whole thing about NHIF. And I've always told you, especially when it comes to how much we give, what percentage is it in terms of what we give. For example, if I pay 500 shillings, a commoner pays 500 shillings, who earns about 5,000 shillings in a month, that makes it about 10%.
That's true.
The question is, a person who earns about 1.2 million in this country pays about 1,700. What percentage is it? Is 0.00 something. So we actually even need to address the percentages so that we can now improve into this key in terms of how much we get. We need to, for example, get a percentage. Let's, for example, talk about 7%. If you talk about 7%, what that will do, it is going to reduce the 500 shillings for the common mwananchi to about 400 or thereabout, which will be affordable. And then it's also going to now increase the 1,700 for a person earning $1 million or 100,000 plus to some figures at around 10,000, 8,000. What will that do? That will increase the money into that kitty. And what that is that eventually going to do? It is going to enhance, issues of, we're going to make our hospitals better. We're going to have better healthcare. So I think we need to look at the entire thing. But this has been long overdue. Right. We are glad that it's come at this point. But I think we need to, as far as NHIF is concerned, we need to look at it wholesomely. Yes.
This, as we continue to struggle, with the attainance of health coverage, universal health coverage, as of course being pushed by the current government, Jubilee government, under the watch of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And expounding further on matters health, you realize that there is an alarm that with the low uptake of vaccine in the country, we risk global isolation. We've seen a scenario where teachers have been threatened, and I've been told that, we're giving you a maximum of 6 days. If you do not get the job, then I'm sorry, you might as well say or forget about your pay, your August pay. Does it have to go to that level? And honestly, do you suppose that as a country we really have these jobs lying around, and therefore very many people are just probably shying away from accessing it, looking at the numbers? And I mean, I don't know whether you guys have taken the job, but I have personally had the advantage to do that, and I'm grateful for it. But the places I went to get the job, or the place I went to get the job from, I am telling you, the queues are insane. And so to imagine that we can still be speaking of a scenario where people are shying away from taking the job, I put a question mark on that.
Well, I think the reason is that there is some exertion of pressure. You see, initially, there were no queues. You would walk in and walk out in 5 minutes. Okay. But what is happening right now, there is some sort of threat. Say, if you don't take the job, forget about either your job or your pay. You saw the other day civil servants being forced. Why the change of heart? Because I think initially the government was saying, if you feel like it's voluntary, what changed? Because I think the vaccine is still the same. The process of taking the jab is still the same. So what changed? But anyway, the other question that you've asked, personally, I think the jabs are there. I mean, we know, like we call it in Swahili, tabia za Wakenya, Corruption is everywhere. It is. These jabs will come, someone will take some of them for their own personal use. That's true. And that's why we are having these long queues. Because every day, like today, I think we are receiving another batch of doses. They will never be enough because they come, a certain percentage is taken away, and it remains a few. And so these queues are not going to end anytime soon, unless now, and this will actually lead now corruption in hospitals, because now you will have to pay something for you to jump the queue to get the jab. So I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. The government ought to have prioritized this issue of the jabs. As much as they are coming from outside, spend more money on this so that we can finish up with this process and move forward on other matters, because we cannot remain on COVID forever.
That's true.
Yes. But before you even go on, let me give you the situation in Kiambu. I was in Kiambu Hospital yesterday, and there was a long queue of people waiting to get the jabs. I've already gotten the 2 jabs, so I went to check around and see. But I'm telling you, like in Kiambu, the reason why people are coming out and in big numbers is because the situation is pathetic. Okay. Literally in every village, every day, there's a person who's being buried because of COVID. Yeah. And you see, that is why I fault the Minister of Health. Because the numbers that they give us every day, that we've lost 10 in the last 24 hours, whereas I know in Kiambu, 20 being buried on that. I mean, let them come out and give us real figures. Yeah. Go to Tigoni, for example, today. Tigoni, you cannot get a single bed. Yesterday, when I was in Kiambu Hospital, there is some space they've set for COVID patients. There were about 8 waiting to be transferred to Tigoni. So we're probably waiting to get space either in Kenyatta or Dhaka. We need to tell people the truth. what is motivating people in Kiambu is the fact that in your village, you've already married 2 or 3 of your friends who you know very well.
Right.
So now people are skeletal, everybody is getting out to get a job. But we encourage people, I would hate a situation where, like what I saw the other day, that America is saying, now our people need to watch out, don't go to Kenya, is a COVID. We risk being isolated. So I think we need to come out, get a job. And it's not for the country. It is not for any other reason. It is for your good.
That's
it is
true.
for your sake.
Yeah.
So I think we need to encourage the people to come out. And I told you when I was here, to teachers, it should be made compulsory, just like what they've done. And I told you that long before, because there is no way I'll give you my 3 children, for example, and you give your 5. So we form a school that has about 1,000, and we trust it to some 40 teachers who are going to infect our children. I think it's wrong. Everybody needs to get that jab so that at least look at what is happening. I was watching the Premier League over the weekend. It's back to business. You see, everybody's in the field. Why? Because they already have the jab, so there's no fear. So I think that's where we need to get to.
And so, of course, once we get to that, maybe we can speak of this talk of easing the restrictions in totality, as some members of Parliament would advocate for. Do we have Kevin?
Linda, I have been here actually.
All right. I don't want you to speak about COVID-19 or the health scenario in the country. I want you to touch on this story of the 6 officers that are now facing murder charges linked to the killing of 2 brothers in Kianjakoma Market in Embu County. You know, we've been treated to this sad news over the weekend, the better part of last week, and it's been quite unfortunate. I just want to equate that to the morality in society. I want to equate that to the kind of society that we're breeding today. You realize that there's a lot of intolerance. You know, people are irate, probably tough times. You realize that families are no longer safe spaces for family members. And you just ask ourselves, what is happening in society that even at this point, we can have police, you know, carelessly getting into, you know, taking the lives of individuals without going deep into understanding what really is happening. And I mean, all this is because, well, they were allegedly being accused of having flouted the COVID-19 regulations.
Linda, it's quite a sad state of affairs and very disturbing, especially at a point in time when the rates of mental health are really skyrocketing in our republic. And in my view, not much is being done to be able to provide Kenyans with opportunities to deal with these kind of challenges. And part of what we need to do, therefore, is to open up safe spaces where people can be able to speak. Kenya has a very strong mental health policy, and that part of that policy requires that you have spaces where anybody can be able to walk in and find somebody to speak to about your issues and actually get help. We have a commission that the president, actually a task force that the president himself put in place and inaugurated, that is therefore supposed to help Kenya and Kenyans to be able to deal with issues of mental health. But remember that the police is more or less like, as we say, a disciplined service, is a disciplined unit of citizens that you probably might not expect that they will just walk into, you know, some of these spaces like in health facilities and ask for somebody to talk to. And so that therefore means, Linda, that we must be very categorically clear that we have to also get into these institutions of the police by the National Police Service, opening up within police stations and within police units opportunities where even those disciplined servicemen and women can be able to get people to speak to. I know that we have chaplains within our disciplined unit, both in the Kenya Defence Forces and also within the police service. We must insist that these chaplains will be given proper support that they need, so that the people who they serve within their chaplaincy units within the police service will be able to have effective opportunities for them to speak about their issues, because failure to do that is actually what we probably call in psychology, where you want to deflate. Actually, it's called deflation. You want to deflate your emotions on other people, and in most cases, the other people are actually the weaker part of that deflation. And so, if the police therefore find people who probably they think are loitering, and they can be able to charge them with COVID-19 protocols and rules, despite the fact that the government now has very clear protocols on COVID-19. If you are stressed and you have mental health issues, therefore you want to use the weaker person, to meet the kind of frustration or mental issues that you might have. But lastly on this, Linda, is that we also must emphasize that extrajudicial killings is not anything that, in my view, Kenyans should be able to tolerate. And this is purely based on how we have handled other extrajudicial killings among the police in the past, because we have police shooting people aimlessly, and then we are told by the IG that they have been suspended, the investigations are going on. IPOA comes in and then says we are recommending for charging, but we are never told when these people are going to court, how long are these cases going to take, what are the issues that they have been charged with, and then we have citizen oversight mechanisms on how we can be able to follow up on these issues. And so this Kianjakoma brothers case, Linda, therefore should set the precedence on how the government of Kenya will be able to deal with this issue. And I am hoping that the president will actually speak very firmly on this issue so that this becomes a stop to what we see the police doing to civilians and people who are called Kenyans. Linda.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. We certainly hope that justice will be served. And we also know the other ones that also faced the wrath of the mob. And it's quite an unfortunate occurrence. But anyway, we overlooked that. Kenyans at some point in time had expressed their outrage over the cold reception of athletes. But President Uhuru Kenyatta did the noble thing yesterday and celebrated them. And he says that we want to continue to ensure that we not only do our best to retain our athletes, but also we are constantly building up our sportsmen and women from an early age. That is one key story that has been captured. And this one, where parents are complaining of the burden of CBC. I don't know how lucky some of us are in this room to have babies and how difficult it is for them, especially when you have to work with this child trying to learn some of the things that they're doing in school just so they would also learn. We drop the newspaper review by picking on the main story or the main stories across the papers. Divisive moment for One Kenya Alliance crucial talks. 2022 Raila factor splits One Kenya Alliance. That is on the Standard newspaper and the Daily Nation and the People Daily. It's D-Day for One Kenya as Raila launches bid. I don't know what you make of this. We still have the same monkeys, I'd say.
Yes, I'll comfortably say that. Yeah. And then the new person in this sort of alliance is Gideon. The rest have been there.
Who is not so new anyway.
Who is not
in
so
politics.
New. And of course, not so new in politics. I don't think it brings on board anything much. Yeah. Because politics is a game of numbers. But I think what the Daily Nation is asking is the Raila factor. Because that's a factor you cannot ignore when you're forming this kind of an alliance. So, because I'll tell you something. What is being done is not new. And they're not going to achieve much.
Oh, yeah?
And they need Raila more than they. Because if you look at this group of Mudavadi, Kalonzo, Wetangula, and Gideon, there's nothing much they can do.
Oh, yeah? Mudavadi cannot? He launched his economic whatever model the other day on Friday, and it looked promising enough.
Who knows about it? Let me tell you something about Kenyans, ordinary Kenyans. Ordinary Kenyans do not understand when you talk about an economic model. Before you spell it out to them and they get to know it. You see, we will have the normal euphoria that decides who wins election. And let me tell you something, the person who has the numbers is Raila, and they cannot ignore Raila. So they'll have to bring him in. And the question is, that is why this group needed BBI more than anything. Okay. That is why they keep fighting for BBI. Because BBI was about making sure that all of them will get slots at the top. Okay? But it seems it's not coming. So that is why now they're thinking.
Don't celebrate just yet. Why do you say it seems like it's not coming? It's just on Friday and we'll have known.
I'll tell you this for free. The Court of Appeal judgment will be more harsh than the High Court. I don't know.
You think so?
Yes.
Are you trying to, well, it's too late now. I mean, I think they've already deliberated on that and therefore they're just waiting to give us the bombshell.
But there's nothing new here. I do not expect much to come from this. And again, I think it's getting late in the day. Before even you have not even identified who is going to be a presidential candidate, who is going to occupy this position. And then we have a near, you hit the road running. These are presidential, you need to do the entire country. So I think they need to speed up if they're serious about it. And then they need to come with a model that is unique, not what they've treated us to in the previous elections.
All right.
But I don't expect much out of them.
Dening, before we get to the BBI factor, let's look at these individuals here. And one of the key things that takes them to Naivasha is to deliberate on how they're going to pick the flag bearer, and therefore Anthony Konya should not push them just yet. They have it all figured out. And as the side that he represents will always say, please don't push us just yet. We will explain the bottoms-up approach within time. So please don't pressure us. I would rather you do not pressure the people of One Kenya Alliance. But like he rightfully puts it,
how do you tell where I belong?
I know. I've been with you long enough to, unless you change overnight, which is actually, I mean, what we are supposed to be treated, because I'm being told that, you know, even those leaders from Mount Kenya region that are supporting the deputy president or appear to support the deputy president will be running away from him. And we probably have seen how Kuria is misbehaving.
No,
somehow.
the exodus will be, I've always told you, the exodus will not be from the deputy president to any other side. The exodus is in Mount Kenya, and that's where I live. And I've always told you, when a fish comes out of water and tells you the crocodile is sick, don't doubt. They live together in water.
Okay.
I'll tell you, I mean, I'm from Mount Kenya, I can tell you. The exodus will be from these other sides to the deputy president side.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
You think?
Yes.
You know?
Watch this space.
It's a wait and see.
It's a wait and see, but I don't, it cannot be a wait and see. This
is actually.
Watch this space. What Kuria is doing, before we allow Akim to come in, what Kuria is doing is what any other politician would do. You know, no politician would want that when the cake is being shared, that you're behind there and someone is giving you a slice. You'd want to be at the table. So what Kuria is doing is
positioning
what Mwangi Kinjori have always said, that when you go to hunt, you need to have your own dog. So that when the spree is being shared, then you have a stake in it because your dog participated. It's simple as that. Okay. It's not that he's running away from the deputy president. He's only getting more bargaining power. And because Kuria, out of the 2 by-elections that have happened, actually 3 by-elections. Remember the Muranga one where he was able to get his party got an MCA seat. Then there's the Juja one. Okay, so that one has given him some bit of muscle.
And even on this other side,
yes. So now that gives him the bargaining power. So it's not that he's running away from the deputy president. He knows if he runs away from that, then his goose will be cooked. What he's simply doing is getting enough muscle to participate at the table where the cake will be shared.
Wow.
Yes.
One Kenya Alliance.
All I can say, one day in politics.
It's like a million years.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, about these 4 gentlemen, we say the forest is the same. I mean, forests are now different. The monkeys are the same, jumping on those trees. I dare say, if indeed they feel they are ready, you know, I mean, they disintegrated from NASA, they are now in OKA, why are they shelving the fact of choosing a flag bearer? Yeah. And I actually agree with Mheshimiwa, it's because they actually need Baba in this matrix. Because if they went to Naivasha to retreat and discuss about who is going to be a flag bearer, yet they pulled out of NASA, why then are they dilly-dallying? Why then are they trying to bring in BBI that we do not know if BBI will pass or not? I mean, you want to be a president, focus on being a president, focus on bringing up a formidable presidential campaign and a spirited fight. So when you look at also the numbers, as things are currently, even the combined, all of them combined, they still do not have real numbers.
Okay.
And so I think that is why they will now want Baba to come in. And of course, as you see, the Daily is putting it, they now have conditions of their own towards Baba.
Dening, I am not a guru in matters politics, but I'll tell you this for free. When you look at Team Tangatanga pushing for Raila to be the flag bearer in the event that they work with One Kenya Alliance, there has to be a reason. I don't know why they would rather prefer a contest that will be about them and Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and not a contest that will be about them and one of the leaders that will be picked there and backed with Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Do you suppose they are strategic and they know that Right Honorable Raila Odinga will be more of a walkover for them?
Well, you would say that and not really, because you see, I'm sure the happiest moment of Deputy President William Ruto would be beating Baba hands down, you know. I mean, he has already beat him in 2 elections, 2013 and 2017, but now he was a running mate. So of course, his happiest moment as a one-time student of Baba while they are still in the Pentagon would be to beat Baba. So of course they wouldn't want anyone else to be at the helm. They would want Baba to be at the helm. So if it's beating, we've actually beaten Baba. But anyway, as we say, it depends on how these things will work out. If Baba comes into play, I mean, I don't see magic per se. These guys have been in NASA. They lost 2 elections. So I don't see any magic indeed.
All right. Kevin, you know, I don't know why this gentleman forgets so fast. Have we not just spoken about Hakainde Hichilema, who's tried it for, you know, like for the longest of time, and finally he got it? Why would we assume that these key figures that we see right here, with all the machinery, with all the money, with all the power, you know, with all the prowess in matters politics, would not be lucky enough this time?
About coalitions and what it is to win an election in president, will be able to win the 2022 elections alone. Requirements by IEBC, you will need
we might need to fix that.
50% plus 1. Nobody in Kenya, as it is right now, 50% plus 1 without bringing in other people.
Well, to pick it up from that point, coalitions. You had the likes of Charity Ngilu acknowledging this. You know, Baba, we have been there. Kalonzo Musyoka, you've tried this. Musalia Mudavadi, you've tried this alone. And it appears that we are at that era as a country that we have to acknowledge that nobody goes out there and, you know, grabs that win without working with other individuals.
I think collusions are important, but let's look at this particular collusion. The last thing about this collusion, and I want to advise Baba, and I want to give Baba free advice and tell him there's nothing as bad as the baggage of government, and especially when one government is turning to another. See, what happens is, by close association, Baba associating himself with the president and the president supporting this coalition, what will happen to Baba is that Baba will carry the sins of this government. And when he goes to the election, because Uhuru will not be going to this election, he will have to cleanse himself from the sins of this government.
Why not the DP, who is also part of this government?
Ideally, because the president would not be... We are assuming if things go the way they are today, and then the president doesn't support his deputy, as Aya promised, and supports Baba, the Baba will carry the baggage of this government. And it's going to become very difficult for him. I can tell you for free, Baba will lose very early in the morning. That one I can
That's the reason why you really are pushing for...
you know, and let me tell you something. There is nobody here among us, these four, the OKA alliance, that to get into the helm, they have to get Baba. Baba has the numbers. In this game, let me tell you something.
What if Baba comes in and says one of them Tosha?
That are going to be another factor, but let me ask you, who? Because you see, we are not talking about we are not talking about people who've come from heaven, or from another country they've just landed. We're talking about people that we know. Does Mudavadi have that zeal?
You think the DP has more of a zeal than Mudavadi?
I am telling you, Baba will, and you see, Baba is having his last shot, if you ask me. You know, he's getting old, and the only real opportunity of him ascending, and you see, he's passionate about being a president one day. So the only opportunity that he has is now. Or never. So do you think Baba is going to allow anyone else to just chip in? That is why I was telling you, that is why to this group, BBI is everything. That is why you hear talks of extending this term, so that they can see if they can loop in BBI. So that, because they know all of them want to become something in this government. So the only way you can do is create space, which I can tell you is they're not going to realize. So the Baba factor here is big. There is nothing much this group can do. As Wakili here says, it may be a different forest. The monkeys are the same, and there is nothing much.
Well, it appears to be a bit boring. Kevin, are you there? All right, we're still trying to get a hold of Kevin. Our politics is getting boring, so to speak.
Somehow. But maybe just to respond to Mheshimiwa here, every government usually inherits the sins of the previous government.
Whether
it's nothing different.
Whether you were associated with them or not.
And especially in Kenya, where we see it's almost the same people who have been in these governments all through. Just been looking at a photo of in 1990, I think 1991, when Kalonzo was the foreign affairs minister, you know. So all these people have been in governments, in successive governments, almost all through. So I don't think that's really an issue. And as we always say, politics is all about positioning yourself.
That's true.
I think in the mind of Baba and his advisors, he knows very well he is positioning himself somewhere. Because at the end of the day, he had to rattle Jubilee so that he can get that position. Otherwise, if the president and the DP were in good dalliance, you know, the brotherhood that they had, I mean, Raila would be nowhere. You know, he would just be the normal, the all-time opposition leader. So he had to do something so that he can position himself. And I think that is what he's looking at. But as I say, he needs to come up with a new strategy. Otherwise, as you're putting it, our politics are now boring. It's the same thing, the same people, the same strategy. I don't think we will manage to see anything different.
The President Uhuru Kenyatta factor here, and generally the politics as to how it will shape up come 2022. What do you make of his support for the One Kenya Alliance, not necessarily One Kenya Alliance, for these key leaders? What do you make of the absence of, you know, a powerful woman in all these matrix that we're having right now? And what do you suppose then President Uhuru Kenyatta will be exiting and, you know, saying that, of course, this is what I've achieved, and I'm confident that I'm actually leaving this to, you know, a better person, and I'm confident that this person is going to continue with my legacy, looking at, you know, the kind of politics that he plays today. At some point, silent as his DP is being buggled around, but on the other hand, appears like he is speaking in the name of Right Honorable Raila Odinga, has been very instrumental for me to successfully achieve some of the things I expected to during my second term.
One, Linda, let me tell you something. Do not be surprised if the whole of this thing overturns. Do not be surprised if at the end of the day, Uhuru supports the DP. No, these things happen in politics.
They do, but don't you think
do not be surprised.
We've really waited for that moment.
I'm telling you,
yeah.
Maybe President Uhuru Kenyatta knew if he's going to deliver and do anything, then he needs a lot of peace, and that peace cannot be begotten by the handshake and what have you, which I have always told you is what wrecked this government during this government. But do not be surprised. In politics, as Wakili here said, one day can do a whole lot of things. Do not be surprised that at the end of the term, things will, because he's my president and I've known him and for some time, and I'm in his backyard.
Okay.
So probably he would listen to his people, and his people are telling him now, you see now, in as much as you are our man, in as much as you are our leader, this is what we want, because you're not ascending to power again, you know. So our people, the Mount Kenya region will tell him now, you see, the way we feel it, if you still want to hold respect in this region, then we think our person should be this person. So that is a factor that you cannot play out. I am not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it's a possibility.
Don't be surprised.
Okay. There is this other factor, and if you look at it, if you look at what Uhuru has been doing, they've been pushing these alliance towards a Raila presidency. If you're careful to watch politics, not in as much as you're telling them to come together. If you look at him, he's pointing at Raila and telling these people, now you need to come together. So actually, where the problem is, it is not that these people don't know it is Raila who is going to be their candidate. The question is, for how long, and who is going to deputize, and what other positions that these people are going to hold.
Okay.
That is where the whole debate is.
Right.
But they all know their man is going to be Raila. That I can tell you. And it is a good thing that we'll have Raila, because Raila will be the best candidate to beat.
To beat.
Yes.
Okay.
But I must say, I mean, what Mheshimiwa is talking about seemingly is to be like a movie, you know. Too much suspense and then boom. I mean, we've seen the relationship between the president and his deputy. It's not flowery. And I mean, if it were so, I don't think the president and the DP can sit down and say, for us to fool these people, you go join UDA and start popularizing your party. And then when that time comes, the promise that I made nichape yangu 10 halafu nikupatie yako 10, we do it. I mean, it's impossible.
Don't be surprised.
It's impossible. But as we say, politics is a whole another game. But anyway, as you put it, I don't think the president is really pushing or rather supporting this alliance towards that sort of presidency. And that is why, you see, for them, the BBI is a big deal. I mean, the president knows if the BBI scores its part, all these people are sorted.
They are sorted, I know. I was listening to some people trying to say, okay, now we'll have the president and the prime minister, I don't know what.
And the deputies.
We'll have the deputies, we'll have PK as I don't know what, we'll have Right Honorable Raila Odinga as, you know, you just look at it and you are heartbroken as a Kenyan.
Yes.
Because then evidently it will be all about what the Tanga side says, creation of positions for certain individuals. I'd love to hear the view of Dening on BBI. I've never heard your position. I don't know whether you are for it or for not. I'll get that after the short break.
Okay.
All right. All right, we still have Honorable Anthony Konya. And we also have Advocate of the High Court, Dening Okato, and we also have a governance expert, that is Kevin Osido, joining us virtually. Dening, your position on the IB, the BBI. I've heard Mheshimiwa, I know where he stands. I know where Kevin Osido stands. Yes. As a Kenyan, you probably know you're an advocate of the High Court, but technically a Kenyan. In your own position, what do you make of the bill now? Forget about the report from that time of inception up to this level.
Well, the BBI has promising things. Yeah, that is the truth. It has promising things. But truth to the matter, politics has taken a toll in the BBI.
Yes.
And that is the problem. Because you see, the BBI is supposed to be pro-people, you know, not pro-politicians. At the end of the day, sovereign power, we the people. Right. Those are the first words in the Constitution. So on that aspect, I actually fault it, because we have chances of it taking more part in building the Kenyan person. But you see, all the talk is about what positions are supposed, and that's a fact, you know. The key thing that comes out of this process is power. As much as we have legislative doings, policy doings, and all those, but the key thing that comes in is about power. So where is the position of the Kenyan in the BBI? Because the only positions we are hearing are political positions. So on that note, I actually fault it.
Kevin Osido, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me, Linda?
Does the bill as it stands have anything for the common mwananchi?
The bill, the Constitution Amendment Bill, of course it does, because that's really where issues around resources are going to be discussed. That's really where issues around representation are going to be put to the table. That's really where the power of sovereignty of the people is going to be tested. And so if you ask me whether the Constitution Amendment Bill has anything good for the common citizen, of course it does. The only problem, as Dennis says, is because there's too much politics that has marred the BBI process, and it has taken over actually lots of gains, which would then have been accrued to the common citizen or the common mwananchi. And so how to organize the citizens to, recapture that power and recapture the promise through the BBI is really the most important concern. Political narratives have taken center stage, and the benefits and the low-lying fruits, including the midterm benefits and the space of the citizen, is not as pronounced as the politics as we see it within the BBI process. Lastly, of course, the articles on Amendment 255, 256, all the way to 257 have given us what is required for an amendment of the Constitution. And so really parts of what the citizens are supposed to be keen to look at is what their benefits are when it comes to those particular articles, then that will be taken to the referendum. But as it is, the process is at the Court of Appeal, August 20th. In the next 3 days, God willing, we have the verdict, and then we can be able to see how to pick up the pieces and move forward as a citizens without focusing too much on the politics. Unfortunately, until 9th of August 2022, we are here with the politics, Linda.
All right, well, and speaking of which, Honorable Ikonya, let's face it, that while we would want to fault the BBI, as Kevin Osido says, there's something for everyone. Should I say that? At least there's something
just
for the
to ask
common
a
man.
question. I'll probably ask Wakili before I respond.
Yeah.
For example, because these are legal issues, probably be able to spell it out better. If the judgment will be in favor of the pro-BBI people on Friday, it will be time barred.
How so?
Assuming on Friday we have a good verdict for the pro-BBI, will we still be able to have a referendum?
For the pro-BBI?
Yes.
You need to understand that there's a process in Parliament ongoing also.
Yes, that is why I want him to spell it out to us so that we understand.
As it stands, before Parliament says
if, for
anything.
example, if for example on Friday they get the BBI people, they get a nod, what happens?
Actually, one thing that we have to understand is that once matters are in court, the statutory duration somehow pauses.
Okay.
Because it's not out of their own doing. This is a court procedure.
Okay.
Yes. So
and what happens to now the question that, where the Constitution says that you cannot
so that
have a referendum?
The power of the Constitution?
Not really superseding. It actually, this is a determination that was made actually by the High Court some time back.
Okay.
On a question, it was a question on IEBC. You remember the Nairobi gubernatorial, the by-election that was to be held, when the matter went to court actually, and the court advised that once the matter is there, you cannot actually consider it too, because this is a matter in court. It's being deliberated in court. So once this is done, and of course, if it goes against the pro-BBI team, of course they will rush to the Supreme Court. And so all this will be stayed. But the most important thing is, do we achieve the procedure that is required? Have we done public participation? I mean, among those are the key things. Have it gone through the county assemblies? And you say it depends on what route will be taken. Is it parliamentary initiative or popular initiative? So we await that, because with now the amendment bill, we can parliamentarians can actually take the parliamentary initiative route under 256.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to be interesting to watch, Mheshimiwa, and I guess that's what I was trying to say. We definitely know there are a couple of things that would probably be out of the timelines as expected. Yes. That's the reason why the IBC came out to say that, in as much as we'd want to have the boundary review, the Constitution constrains us because of the aspect of time, and therefore such like would probably not be accepted. But when you see the proponents, and you can see the members of parliament that are pushing for the same amendments of the aspect of time, these are proponents of the BBI, is because they also understand the possibilities that this would sail through, and in the event that it sails through, is there going to be something that again will come in as a stumbling block in the aspect of time, and probably they are strategic enough on this one. But just back to the question, BBI, as they would say, it opens a window for resettling or resetting Kenya's economic fortunes. That is one thing that they speak about. And they say it should be a priority. And you on the other side have always said that we have not prioritized things right. Yes. That BBI is not a priority. Yeah. But if it is a document that comes in to reset Kenya's economy, why not give it a chance? If it is a document that will come in handy and probably have every other person have a chunk to celebrate or win on, why should you go against it?
I think BBI timing was wrong, if you ask me. It may have a lot of good things, as you say, but I want to think it is not a priority in this sense. I think BBI was introduced in the realm of, when COVID was coming in, and then things got really bad to the people, So what would have made sense to people then, by virtue of having gone through a difficult time and people losing their jobs, so their priority now ceased from looking at economic, what people are concerned about today is a robust economic recovery strategy that will put money in their pocket, as opposed to some document that is perceived to be creating seats, because that is what is being seen and has been politicized, as he said. So what people are looking at, and why people people dispel this thing is because the immediate problem is money. We have a lot of mental issues, as Osindo was saying. If you look at the police force, for example, the things they're going through, everybody's going through a hell of a time. People don't have money, the economy is so bad. I make reference to the county government. Today is on date 16th or thereabout. Nobody has been paid. Nobody has been paid.
17th, yes.
Yes, 17th, and nobody has been paid. Others dating back to 8 months. Some casuals dating back to 8 months. And today is 17, people are not being paid. Now the question that now you now pose to the people is whether you want this document or to people, to the common mwananchi, is about getting money. So that is why this government has become so unpopular. That is why there's so many things that the government is attempting to do. They may be good, very good, but it does not make sense now.
Dening,
yes.
Let's face it, and let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. In the event that the proponents would have heard what the opponents are speaking about, please shelve the interest of BBI first. Let's deal with the matters at hand. Let's deal with the issues that bedevil Kenyans as at now. Do you suppose there's anything much in terms of a difference, in terms of making sure that Kenyans are cautioned at this point of COVID-19 that would have really happened?
I don't think so, but at least it will be the agenda on the table. See, right now the agenda is BBI, nothing else. And we must be very honest with each other. BBI was a child of a strained relationship between the president and Raila Odinga, you know. That is why BBI came. Out of a secret meeting, Kenyans are told, now we have a BBI. A secretariat is formed. They start going around the country. So it's not something that really came from the Kenyan people per se. As much as we have leaders, the president is a sovereign person whom we've given power to rule over us. But be that as it may, it was not something that really came out from the Kenyans. So everything that we are being told is something that the two of them had discussed, you know? And that is what has been forced upon the throats of Kenyans. So you have to deal with that situation. True to the matter, right now, especially now after COVID came in, things became worse. We would have shelved. I mean, we've seen rallies during COVID. That tells you something. It's just the selfish nature of that process. Because now, once the proponents do rallies, Mheshimiwa and those who are against will also do rallies to counter.
Yes.
And you see, at the end of the day, that mwananchi who does not have money is the one who is attending that rally. You know, so for me, it's something that would have been shelved for a while. Let's sort out the economy. Let's sort out this unemployment. People are now under depression. You know, people are not doing well. We would have sorted that first, and then now we can come back to, if indeed it was a genuine thing.
Okay, Osido, let's talk about protest votes. We're talking about that while we were on break. And the argument is that Kenyans are tired with the president, Kenyans are tired with the Jubilee government, and therefore any vote that is to come today, be it a by-elections or anything, if it involves the president's face or, you know, the party at hand directly, then they will vote against them. They will vote against President Uhuru Kenyatta just to tell him that we are disappointed in you. And I'm afraid that that is a trajectory that we're going to take heading to 2022, that people are going to tell a president who's going to exit after all, that we are tired with the Jubilee government, that people are going to vote on basis of, you know what, let's punish them. Let's show them. Mbona walikataa Ruto, sasa let's support Ruto so that they can know that we the people are tired with them. Is that the right angle to take if at all as a people we need change?
Linda, Kenyans are not yet tired. Let nobody cheat you. Kenyans have been pushed to the walls. Kenyans have been tested and tempted. We have seen fuel prices skyrocketing and people threatening to stop their vehicles on the traffics, on the highways. Nobody does anything. The cost of unga has gone up almost 3 times in this country, and people have said, can we punish this government? Can we have, stop people stopping going to work? Nothing has happened. We have seen, the things we are calling police brutality during COVID-19, and people have said, can we go to the streets and demonstrate? Nothing has happened. We have seen activists saying, can we punish this government by saying Tekeleza Katiba? The former Chief Justice has actually issued an advisory to the president to disband parliament because it is illegally constituted. No one has gone to the streets to support the former Chief Justice. Linda, between August 12th until yesterday, I have been meeting with young aspirants because at County Governance Watch, we have this program called the Aspirants Academy. These are almost over 382 people from different regions across the country. One of the prayers which all these young people said was, we want to meet with Raila, we want to meet with President Uhuru, we want to meet with the UDA team, party leader, DP Ruto, we want to meet Mudavadi. Why do they want to meet with them? The IEBC is projecting 5.2 million young new voters. These are people who can have their own president. Why are they not organizing to topple, quote unquote, the government and say, we are tired, like you are saying it? So let nobody cheat you, Linda and my colleagues in studio, that Kenyans are tired. We have been pushed to the walls. We have failed to exercise our sovereignty. If you look at the people who are saying they want to run for presidency, we are not seeing any new entrants. The sign and indicator of being tired and fatigued is for good people to begin to show up that they want to run for president, they want to be governors, they want to be MCS, they want to be women reps. We are not seeing that happening. Those are indicators of a tired generation and a tired nation.
Okay.
We are not seeing Kenyans organizing around that. So as it is right now, the status quo remains the same. Kenyans are waiting for the who is who's in the political environment and climate to tell them who will be the president. We have failed to be the game changers who will stop this kind of madness and sickness. That is why Parliament can fail, to have campaign financing laws that are supposed to safeguard how campaigns are run, and nobody does anything. We only stand before TV stations and we say, civil society, we don't want this to happen. But look at conflict of interest. There is nobody who will pass a law that stops them from doing what they want to do. And that is what we are actually doing, Linda. So I don't think Kenyans are tired as much. The youth of this country are feeling frustrated, but they are doing nothing. They are organizing in small silos that are actually working at cross purpose. If we were as tired as you are saying it, Linda, we would have actually seen young people across the country saying counties are not doing what we expected them to do. Devolution is not working for us the way we expected it to do. COVID-19 is happening, but politics is taking center stage. We must stop this madness of politics. We would have seen young people going out to do public education on the vaccines.
Right.
That is an indicator of a tired generation. I don't think we are as tired as we have been pushed, Linda.
And I somehow agree with Osido because somewhere in 2018, even the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka were moving around acknowledging that the wind of change is coming, acknowledging that we have gotten to a point of a revolution, that a revolution is rife. And then in thin air, it disappeared.
I think the change that we have was brought about by COVID. The fact that COVID came, and there is this narrative that if you meet, if you gather, if you do all those things, then COVID is going to ravage. And we saw that in Kiambao the other day, which has escalated the disease. So there is that fear, all right? There's that fear. But I'll tell you, Kenyans are tired. You can see that on social media. You can talk to the people on the ground, they'll tell you that. It is only that now, things have changed, and they're probably going to react in they're too tired to even move to the streets.
Okay. You're
too broke to even be told to go in. They are waiting for an opportunity where they can punish government. And that is why I told you, whoever, especially if Raila is supported by the president, then there's going to be a protest vote against this government that is going to bring Raila.
But just how does it benefit us? That's my question. I mean, what is the point of having a protest vote? Would you tell me that the people of Kiambaa now are enjoying the best of governance, the best of development after pulling a protest vote on President Uhuru Kenyatta? And we went on social media, and you had a majority of people asking, has the president now stopped moving around with a chopper or whatever? Have you heard that the president's kids are now sleeping hungry? That they're now going to terrible schools just because you pulled a protest vote on him?
Unfortunately, that is the nature of our politics. The most unfortunate thing.
It's to satisfy our ego. We protested. I think that is what will be. But anyway, I have to agree on the fact that Kenyans are tired, just that they are broke. I mean, who has 4.4 billion to run for presidency as a youth?
Yes, nobody.
Nobody. It's only those people who have that money. So you can be tired.
And now that was cheap, and you had them actually complaining, saying that, yes.
It's very little money.
It's very little money, actually.
Yeah.
Kevin, yes.
Kevin is saying he has.
Muhesh, you have.
Let me tell you this.
Me, no.
I don't
But
have
you're going for member of
4.4
parliament.
billion.
Yes.
Yes, Kevin.
I don't have the 4.4 billion shillings, but look at the President Obama campaign. It was purely run on 0 shillings. That's what we are told, even from the book, Audacity of Hope and Dreams from My Father, among several others. If the youth of Kenya wanted to have the 4.4 billion, they would have it without spending a coin. How? You organize yourself and identify a leader and profile this leader, including on social media, like my friends are saying. The things Kenyans on Twitter post on Twitter don't move even the president, because the president quit Twitter. So on who? Who are you talking to? The president is not even on Facebook. Why are you wasting time on Facebook? You know, if the youth of Kenya wanted to show that we are tired, we can have a president without spending money. We basically say that Ikonya is going to be our president, for example, and we wait for August 9th, 2022, and ensure that his photo is basically he meets all the requirements of IEBC and that he has on the ballot paper. Then as Kevin Osido, I use my Twitter handle that has very few followers, my Facebook page, to show that we already have a candidate. That way, Linda, we will stop these people, because every day they're also strategizing, and that is what is happening in Naivasha yesterday and today. That is what is happening in Nakuru, where I am. That is what is happening in Turkana, among others, including in Mombasa. They are organizing how to whip the youth to vote for them. And so they'll come and tell us, Tutajenga Stadium, we will say, oye, we will give you 500,000 houses every year, oye, we will give you 500,000 jobs every year, oye. And then 6 months to another election, we realize, oh, voila, it never happened. So if we want to change this government, we must organize and stop agonizing. Without quoting Miguna, because I don't ascribe to a lot of things that
There is, you see, Linda, that is what I would call dreams of Osido.
Wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking.
Okay.
He knows the reality on the ground. You know, things are tough, things are bad. Running for, Mheshimiwa can tell us, even becoming an MCA is not a mean feat. You know, you have to spend money. So when Osido says that we identify a leader and promote him through, because you see, when they say Obama campaign was 0 shilling, it does not mean that in actually the context. Okay. A presidential campaign is something very massive, going around the country and all that. You have to use money. So that is why we only have these options. There is nothing else we'll ever do. So these are the people with the money. We will have to live with that for a while. Until maybe
Linda, that is not
when money will come into our pockets.
Osido thinks that is not true. Why, Osido? Why do you say it's not true?
It is not true, because I have helped governors to run for office. I have managed a campaign secretariat, head of a strategy team for the youth. A lot of the 4.4 billion, what does it do? Is logistics. What is logistics? Is money given to people. Who is given this money? It is the youth. They print t-shirts. Who receives these t-shirts? It is the youth. They want to print banners. Who is given these banners to go and put on electric posts? It is the youth. It is money that they use to sleep in hotels and travel using choppers. To meet who? It is to meet the youth. If the youth say, we are not meeting with you, you will not spend the money to go and meet with them. You will be meeting in empty stadia, because the youth have said, you have the 4.4 billion shillings, use it on your own. IEBC has said, if you are a young person running for office, depending on the political party, you will not even spend up to 60,000 shillings. It is 50,000. Political parties have said, for you to be nominated as a youth, we will have you register using 5,000 shillings. Those are bare minimums. The 4.4 billion is for us. In fact, it is money which IEBC is projecting, because if you are running for office in Turkana, for example, for you to even convene people, you have to transport them. Who is being transported? It is the youth and women.
On the day women and youth will say to Mechoka, we will actually be the game changers and the game stoppers of this game that is being played among us. Linda.
What will it take?
Let me tell you something. I'm listening to my brother here, and he sounds so much like Makau Motua, who reasons from the US and does some very nice shows on TV, and will tell you how he assumes that government will be formed, whereas it's only that he told us in Nakuru. I assume he's in a country because the things he's talking about are totally out of touch with the ground. That is what we would wish that would happen, but the truth is we all know what is happening.
Okay.
So it is important that we realize that when we talk of campaign and financing a campaign, it is a whole lot of a cost. All right? And for an ordinary Kenyan, and to assume that a person will just come today and declare that he wants to run for presidency, and the rest of us on social media and on Twitter ask Peter Kenneth, who was the president on Twitter and Facebook until the election day came. Remember that? He was so popular, and everybody you go on to social media and he was the president. Until the day of reckoning came. And he realized that in this country things are very different. So my brother,
next time make sure you come to studio, otherwise.
I think you need to come to studio because I need to see you one-on-one and face-to-face. And because
I need to wake up and smell the coffee.
Yes.
But don't you think there's that urge and need for us to get to a level where Kevin speaks about?
That is what all of us would wish.
Yes.
That is what all of us would want.
The situation does not permit.
Is it the situation, or is it just that the people have decided?
Linda, why are you not in politics?
Because I don't have the money.
And let's even challenge him. I would sure he would want to scale to heights in this country, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm sure he's a government expert and he would want to be something because he has a very good ambition for this country.
Yes.
Try that one on us. We promise to support
try it as you close it for us.
Linda,
yes.
Show us by example.
Linda, what I am saying is, because you asked the question, are people tired, to bring change? And I said, on the day we are tired, we'll begin to identify our own leaders. The names that you are being given in studio are not the people's candidates. Peter Kenneth was not a people's candidate. Peter Kenneth was propped by a few people, and they thought they would sell him to the people. But I am saying, on the day the people will identify their candidates and stand by this person, we will stop taking the bribes of the monies, because that's really where the 4.4 billion shillings goes to. We will stop taking the t-shirts. We will stand by our candidate and say, you win, we win with you. You lose, we lose with you. As it is right now, the discussions going on, Linda, are in terms of numbers. And the people who are being counted are the people we are saying that are tired. But the people are not seated inside the rooms where they are being counted. They are outside. Then somebody will come and say, we have agreed that so-and-so is president. Who has told you that we have agreed? It is them who have agreed inside there, but they have not come to the people. But the people will be given the 4.4 billion, which is why the apathy you are talking about will not happen. Because it has been tried in this country on 26th of October 2018. We have a president who was voted into office by less than half of this country, and he is in office. People tried a protest vote. It did not work. Why? Because we have people who have been organized to speak for the people. But on the day people will begin to speak for and by themselves, we will stop these issues, Linda.
Okay.
So I'll come to studio and we'll have this conversation.
Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen. I think we have to close it at that.
That's
Evidently, we have a long way to go.
That is what the hustling movement is about. We've identified one of our
You see now you see, he's now agreeing.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Dening Okato, Advocate of the High Court. It was good having you this morning. Honorable Anthony Konya, Member of County Assembly of Kiambu Township, Asante Sana, and Governance Expert and also the boss of County Watch. Thank you so much, Kevin Osido. It is unfortunate that we come out of this set heartbroken some more. That as a people, we can't get to a point where we say, you know what, forget about the money. Let's vote in ideology, the manifesto that looks good, and with leaders who have the goodwill to implement the same that they present to us. It is really unfortunate. We close it at that, but not in totality, because the next segment is all about the SMEs. One of the crucial departments, I would say, in terms of making sure that as a country we are able to collect revenue, but reality, one that suffers the most, because it is hard for them to conduct business in this country. The taxes access to credit, it is a nightmare. Let's get to hear their views on whether, again, it is about priorities and whether the government has set the priorities right in terms of making sure that they put up ways and structures of making sure that the economy is revamped for it to be favorable for everybody else. Once again, gentlemen, asante sana. After this break.